Funeral services are set for a former East Texas district attorney whose prosecution of a killer mortician captured national and international attention. Former Panola County DA Danny "Buck" Davidson died on Sunday in Carthage. Tonight, a look at his career and the infamous case that was later turned into a movie.
Danny "Buck" Davidson spent nearly 5 decades serving Panola County. He was first elected as one of the youngest county judges in Texas in the 70s.
He could give a master class in how to work a room, how to shake hands, how to be genuine, how to listen to people.
In 1995, he became district attorney, a job he held until his retirement in 2024. No case defined his career more than that of Bernie Tiede, the Carthage mortician convicted of killing a wealthy widow and hiding her body in a freezer.
She had been gone for approximately 9 months when her body was discovered in her freezer.
Bernie's reputation as a beloved community figure had the town divided, so much so that the trial was moved to another county to get an unbiased jury.
Bernie seemed to be, to me, one of the sweetest, most compassionate people you would ever want to know.
He had actually confessed to killing Ms. Nugent, to shooting her in the back with her .22 and putting her body in the freezer, and did all the things a person needs to do to make the community think he is a good Christian.
Bernie was ultimately sentenced to life in prison, the same punishment he received in the 2016 retrial. The case inspired the 2011 dark comedy film Bernie, in which Davidson was portrayed by actor Matthew McConaughey.
He had a great personality, always had a funny quip, always had something, waiting to say, something funny in his pocket. He told me one time, he said, never let a judge get under your skin. He said, always make sure that they rule against you, say, thank you, Your Honor, appreciate you, your judge. He said, have the last word. And I thought, okay, and it's such a minor thing. And he always had something to say.
Danny "Buck" Davidson died Sunday morning surrounded by his family. He was 79.
And a funeral service for Danny "Buck" Davidson is set for Wednesday afternoon beginning at 2 at the Jimerson Lipsey Funeral Home in Carthage. Visitation is set for tomorrow evening, Tuesday from 5 to 7, also at the